Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. Your griot here to tell you a story, and don't believe a word I say. Everything I say is just for your entertainment's sake. So, how you doing today? I had breakfast, now I had lunch, right? I had dessert in between. Grandma always said, always start the meal with dessert. So, we are in a very interesting time. We are we are transiting from our 3D reality to our 5D understanding. And the 3D is it's like school, you know. Um, I spent a lot of time in school. Um, I've been very blessed with some really good teachers, and all the really good teachers I've had have been ones that have basically. I'm going to go with the Albert Einstein look here. Uh, were those who basically had me visualize, meaning math. Math is to learn math out of a textbook or on a blackboard or whiteboard. It's like forget about it, right? Because math should really be started first with set numbers. What are numbers? And then from there you should go into geometry, right? Not looking at fractions or conjugates or algebra or trigonometry. No, geometry because it's something you can see. And so in third grade, when I went back to public school and I was being taught, but I had already learned a great deal of math from all of the teachers I had at the Marinol Sanctuary, right? And so, 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 you know, I was, went to school, and I basically, because I was murdered in first grade by a nun, um, and choked to death. And she broke my esophagus and my voice box and broke my ear and the left orbit of my eye and crushed my head. And luckily, she knocked me out with the first blow. Right, and then what saved my life was that a garbage truck backed up through the window in our classroom. That made a tremendous noise, and the people who were, in charge came running and the garbage truck, the kids in the classroom were like, ah! And the nun was so busy killing me that, you know, she didn't notice, the head nun and the head priest and the bishop come in watching me getting murdered. And so they stopped her and they took me to a hospital and I survived. And luckily, my godfather was a cardinal, Cardinal Cushing. So I got pretty good care. They were ready, once my head, the swelling went down, they were just going to give me a lobotomy and let me be a vegetable for the rest of my life. But he came in and got me out of there and basically took care of me. And then once I was physically able, once they took the cast off my head and unwired my jaw, he sent me to guard the city, Long Island, where the Marinols had a sanctuary, not a nunnery, not a friary, but a sanctuary, right? And it was a community of about 20, 30 guys and about 40 women, right? And instead of those ladies being called nuns, they were called sisters. And instead of the guys being called father, they were called brothers, right? And so, and they all wore civvies, but they were, they had taken the vow, the oath, right? And the thing they were there was to serve humanity and to serve through their disciplines of scholarship, not academia, scholarship, right? So there I was, 7, 8 years old, totally messed up, couldn't talk, really couldn't say a word, right? Couldn't see, I could see out of this eye pretty good. This one, sort of other dimensions, And that's when I heard about the other dimensions, fifth dimension. We're in the third dimension, and because you don't have, you know, perception through two eyes, the duality of your two eyes, and the duality of your brain, this nun has really blessed you because she has smushed your consciousness into a singularity. That's what I became at about 7, 8, right? A singularity instead of duality. And these guys and gals kind of understood it. So one of those guys, his scholarship was in audionomics, meaning the sound and hearing, right? And so he was so he read me the book Doom. And basically, those guys, their whole power, the people who were being enslaved on Syracuse, their power was their voice, right? So he was, and how they could hear. So he was teaching me how to hear and how to speak. And my voice box was really destroyed, my esophagus, meaning I was messed up. Meaning for a year, I had to breathe through a tray. So I had to have food fed into my belly through a hose. And I breathed through 2 straws in my nose. Right? Now, once I got the helmet off, and so this ear really doesn't hear like this ear does. This ear hears people talking, and it hears it in mono, right, and not stereo. This ear is like a phased array radar. And so it has a Doppler effect. I mean, I can tell where people are. If they're just walking, I can say, if it's a dark room, I can say exactly where they are. This is hearing where they are. So that's a great gift, right? And I can hear the little movements of people. And I have, so this happened when I was about 7, and now I'm in my mid-70s, so 60 years or so ago. I had this ability, right? And I've been trained to use it instead of having it. Oh, you're deaf. Oh, isn't this terrible? Oh, you can't hear. I was told that this was a blessing, and that I just had to train myself to use it in a way that this is I was constantly told this, that no one else has this. You do. You're going to be ahead of the game. Yes, it's going to be. Yes, you can't see. Yes, you can't hear. Yes, you can't smell. Yes, you can't speak. But we're going to train you to use, because when you lose a sense, you become sharper in the ones that you do have. Right? Now this eye came like a telescope, right? And a microscope. Right? This one saw the dimensions, I mean the energetics of people. When I read people's palms, I'm really looking at their energetics, how they respond. Because I really, you have about 1,800 lines in your head, right? And they got all kinds of books telling you what every line means. There's only 8 that really matter, right? This is how honest you are. If this is really open, you're really honest. You can't lie, right? And the closer it gets to being like that, someone like this, that's not bad, because that means you don't spill the beans. People tell you stuff, you don't blab it to other people. Like this, So these 2 fingers are your temper, this one and this one, right? That's why you have the middle finger, right? So see how, let's see, can you see it? What's this? See how these 2 fingers aren't quite equal? Well, I can be impatient, but I've trained myself to be, my impatience was given to me, so I would train myself to be very patient. And the only way you can be patient is to be graceful, compassionate, empathetic, and forgiving. And you have to do all those for yourself first, right? So, and so these, even though these folks were, Catholic, the Maryknoll is a Catholic sect. They're everybody. They're all over the world. They're in India. They're in Africa. They're not the white people from New Jersey going to India and Africa. No, African folk and Indian folk and Asian folk that vibrate with the teachings, right? And if you were to read Thomas Merton encompasses all of this. And basically, you can get a good idea because why he was murdered by the Catholic Church was that he was trying to bring forth the East and Western um, belief structures, cultural structures, spiritual structures to be, a holistic tool to move into the fifth dimension. He understood about the changes happening. And he wrote many books, and the 50s and 60s were extremely popular. Catholic Church was happy with that because he was selling millions of these books, and people were buying them, and the Catholic Church was making money. They were making millions a year off of his books and teachings. And he loved Jesus, so he really had to understand Jesus. Right now where I live, I am basically, there are 3 churches nearby me, right? There's a Ku Klux Klan Southern Baptist. There is the Mercantile WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And then there is the Zombie Apocalypse Catholic Church that have false statuary gods, right? And that is because the Catholic Church came from the Holy Roman Empire. And the Holy Roman Empire came from the Roman Empire, right? Which were pagan, right? And the pagans had all these gods. So Catholic Church, couldn't just, it went from pagan Roman Empire to Holy Roman Empire like that. And that's because the new burgeoning Christian religion, they couldn't keep it down. They couldn't throw them. There weren't enough lions to throw them to. So these people weren't just poor. They were everybody. So a Roman businessman said, we should just hold. They're like the Borg, they assimilated them in and then took upon them to be Christian and made themselves the Holy Roman Empire. Good. So that's why, they had all these, Roman gods that came from the Greek gods, that came from the Egyptian gods, that came from the Mesopotamian gods, that came from Sumer. Right? So I was like, really? Okay. And you run into people who don't want to hear any of this. And here's one right here. I was talking to last night. I'm talking about in the 1990s and the early O's, our energy, Russia didn't have the technology. Mr. Dick Cheney and Halliburton went over there along with Mr. The 2 brothers, the Kriegs, who's the oil guys, the 2 brothers who were Koch brothers. Those two entities built Russia's oil infrastructure. From the revolution up through 2000. Sort of Gazprom, you're saying? Yeah. It was based on the Seven Sisters organizational structure. Mr. Rockefeller's oil structure that's Gazprom. And it was built, like I said, by Dick Cheney and the Koch brothers. Their money. And they made a lot of money out of it. And they got a lot of political perks out of it, too. That's one reason why when we blew the shit out of, all of the Mideast, Russia didn't complain one iota. They jumped in Syria.
Because they were making money.
That's not entirely true. What they did was they stepped in Syria and said, "Stop, motherfucker."
No. I'm talking about from 2000 to 2011, meaning Syria didn't happen until 2011 with the Arab Spring, which was a total CIA thing, and Russia was in on that because we gave them the green light to go and do what they did in Syria. We could have stopped them, but we didn't. We let them do it.
I don't think so.
Okay, you don't have to think so. Just go take a look at it with a unprejudiced eye on all the different elements of where they let us do this and we let them do that. Right? And the whole time,
he's right.
They were also taking.
We acquiesced to what they did. They didn't ask permission for doing it.
No, but I'm talking about logistics. We facilitated. We didn't give them permission. It was just like we facilitated, what's his name, to go into Kuwait, Saddam, We gave him everything he needed to do it, and we gave him a nick, when he went into April Glassford and said, hey, England took Kuwait from us. It was us. It was Iraq. And they just drew a line here in 1963 and took it. And now they're slant drilling into our oil reserves. We're going in there. What is America going to do? And April said, no big deal. This is your part of the world. You do what you got to do. As soon as he did it, we jumped right on his shit because what we really wanted to do was go out into his corner of Iraq and steal all these artifacts that the French and the Germans were digging up, and they weren't going to share
over
with
in
us.
The corner.
That's why
you're bending it on artifacts.
Right.
Tell me more about why you just elaborate on that.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly, and it's very clear. So we get all upset about him breaking all these norms, and he's terrible, and he's throwing the babies at
the artifacts.
Right. I'm getting there. So we make the big issue about why we have to go to Kuwait, right? So to go to Kuwait, we have to bring the 5th and the 7th Army from Europe into there, and we're going to go through, we did go into Saudi Arabia, but the other guys, the Emirates, we came in from there, and
we went
and
straight.
we were on the other side, right? We didn't go to Baghdad. We took the 5th Army.
You're saying we went for the artifacts. I want you to explain that.
So we went from the Emirates across the desert. We didn't go into Baghdad. We didn't go into attack his military. We didn't even go into Kuwait. We took the 5th Army straight over to where those artifacts were up in the northern part
with the French and the Germans.
Most of the primary collection of artifacts were in the National Museum.
No. Those were the
operating
owner manuals. The artifacts that we took were really amazing shit that we did not advertise.
So you're saying that we've got artifacts stashed away that we're going to make money on later?
Not money, it's power. What the Germans and the French found was a thing. If you were to go Google looking glass, right? Looking glass, right? And what they found was underground, in the middle of the desert, they found this whole facility that was close to 1 million years old, and these apparatuses were still working. And what they were a dimensional portal that allowed you, why it was called Looking Glass, was that you could, there was this, this sheen, this thing, this film, this energy field that you could look, and you could look into the past and into the future. And Looking Glass, looking into the future wasn't 100% because, the future isn't here yet, so there are a lot of mitigating factors.
Showing results for what is Looking Glass.
89% factor. You could feed things into this and say, okay, if we do this, what's going to happen?
And tell me the location of this facility.
If you were to just Google looking,
you just tell me you've learned about it.
It's in the northern part. I don't know the the numbers of where it's exactly located, but it was up in the northern part of Iraq, up near whatchamacallit, Iran.
Northern Iraq.
Right. Up there, right. And that's one of the things, the Kurds.
What's the status of it now?
It was all taken away. It is in an undisclosed location. The French and the Germans and us have it's probably in some place that it's probably in Australia.
And how are we putting it to use?
We have been using it for the last 30 years, since 91, to look at what would be the outcome of the things we do.
Well, we did that on day one. Now what are we doing with it?
Well, now what we're doing, what happened was, in the year 2012, with the end of the Mayan calendar, Looking Glass stopped giving us the kind of data we wanted. And it just would say, no matter what you ask us, we're going to give you the same answer. You're going to lose.
Right.
Are you sure this is not science fiction?
Go Google Looking Glass. Me, I wasn't there. I know people who were. They've told.
Well, you seem to be persuaded by it. I'm
Right.
trying to figure out what's persuading you.
Well, because I then go and then why they went
this
to
admiral
the
who was
museum
part of
in
that.
Baghdad is, like I said,
naval
the
intelligence.
artifacts they took were the
Who's the guy told me
owner's
about
manuals of how this machine
It
works.
was the National Museum of Archaeology.
Right, and the things
They clearly had very valuable artifacts.
right, and the ones they were looking for were these things that had something to do with the technology they found out in the desert. And I'm
So
telling
you're
you,
telling me they got a peeping glass.
right, into the
Vision
past,
stone.
into the past, and into the.
For now, give me I don't know, man. I can't say that you're wrong, but it sounds like to me it's just cockamamie as hell.
Okay, well, that's because that's your prejudice. You don't believe.
No, I'm not prejudiced. I'm just using my judgment.
Your opinion. You don't even want to go to Google. You don't even want to go to Google and look up Looking
No,
Glass.
I mean, you've done it. Just persuade me. I'm not saying I won't go to Google.
Well,
I
anyways,
refuse to do it, but I'm not going to put this on the table and move on the side.
anyway, this occurred, and have you ever heard of remote viewing?
Yeah.
Well, this is remote viewing to the 10th power, meaning remote viewing really does work. Meaning the one problem with remote viewing, it's very limited. It doesn't give you a 360, meaning you can do that process of remote viewing, but you can only go into the Pentagon or into the KGB and go into this one drawer and look for that one document. And yes, you will find that one document. But that's all you can get with remote viewing. You can't it's not like being the fly on the wall and listening to what Putin's saying in the bathroom. You can look for specific things and have about a 78% hit rate, meaning that this is it, right? So it gives you meaning if you want to know about X, Y, or Z, and you know about a lot of what X, Y, and Z is, but you want something to prove it, that's when you go look.
So, that's what I was trying to describe to this guy. And he doesn't want to listen because he came from a religious sect, up there in the West, the Mormons. And, until he was 23, he believed about, what the Mormons did, because he came from a very powerful, rich Mormon family. And for him to stay on the economic tit of that, he had to believe in the Mormonism, right? As soon as he got his trust in his 30s, everything Mormon is like, bullpucky, right? And so anything that even comes close to that, right? He's saying that's a peephole. And, Mr. Smith had a peephole. He could look at the future. And this is similar. This technology is not just one piece. I mean, it's all over the place. And all this stuff is all over the place. And if you open your mind and don't let prejudice get in you, you can see what's going on, especially. And what's most important is in your life. I mean, all this stuff Meaning he doesn't talk about his life at all. He doesn't talk about, his emotional stuckness, and when I start talking about chakras, and he needs to clear his second chakra because his emotions are. Oh, he don't want to hear that. So, and that is the bottom line of all this. We are here. Why are we here? What are we doing here? Right? What are we doing here is that we are here to learn, to experience, to live. Right? You go to the Old Testament where God showed up on the hill with Moses at the burning bush. Go get the Jews out of Egypt. And the Jews were not per se slaves; they were middle managers, and they were living a comfortable life, and they were losing their Hebrew-ness to comfort. It's like when people in 1,000 years look at the world, the Western, Eastern world, the Earth of the 21st century. They say, well, why did those people, crash and burn? What was their problem? And the basic problem is we are addicted to convenience and belief. And that's what that guy is. That's why I talk to him on a semi-regular basis, because he's kind of smart. He's kind of hooked into politics. He'll go on and on about the Ukraine war. And like right from the beginning, I said, this war is going to be a never-ending war. Oh, no, it isn't. Putin's brilliant. He's going to zoom straight through, and this will be all over. And it's all because of us and what we did over the last 30 years and how we expanded NATO, blah, 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 blah. And, those are just the surface issues. Now, why did Russia let us do that for 30 years? Because we paid them off, right? We were giving them a convenient, comfortable life. The first 15 years of Putin's being in charge, from 2001 on, we did what we wanted to do. We went and attacked Afghanistan, blew up the Mideast, which made Russia more rich because we cut off the energy supply from the Mideast, and the closest energy supply to Europe was Russia. And again, we let Halliburton and the Koch brothers build the infrastructure. Daddy Koch made his first millions by creating Stalin's oil structure, right? And for all of the redneck John Birch entity of the Koch brothers and the Koch family, they made all the money, building the Nazis and the Russians' industrial infrastructure, right? These are that are like you can see them. So why did that happen? If they're like all against this kind of stuff, why did they make it happen? Because they're reading from the same script, and he hates it when I say, that the Ukraine war is the war of the two Vlads, and they're both reading the same script. You can see it. To the point of what weapons we give and how that we blow these guys up, and then they blow those guys up. And the bottom line is to basically turn, and those reactors are going to blow, and just going to take out all of the richest food producing area on this planet. We've destroyed every other place that was very productive, like Australia, the United States, Canada. So we're going to take out that breadbasket in Ukraine and Russia. And we are going. Oil is a thing of the past. It's oil from dinosaurs. Well, it is a dinosaur, and basically, we're going straight to Tesla technology that we should have been using in 1891. That's when he perfected it. But Mr. Morgan said, "Oh, we can't make money on this." Mr. Rockefeller said, "Damn straight, we're not going to do this." That's why marijuana, cannabis sativa, became a Schedule I drug. It's a plant. Schedule I drugs are supposed to be things like synthetic things that are brought forth and turned into a super duper like opiate, and morphine, and cocaine, and crack, and fentanyl, and all the rest of them, right? And cannabis was made illegal because it's a God-given plant. And the thing that it does best is a Bible. We always had hemp for rope. until they turn rope into plastic, right? And oil, right? And so every product is turned into oil. Steak. And it's a weed, it grows everywhere, right? And so, so the biggest thing it does, it can be turned into like the internal combustion engine and the diesel engines, were both manufactured as arm implement tools. You know, instead of having horses, they made these motors to drive, plows and such, to mass produce food, right? After the Spanish-American War, and really after the Baltic Wars, and so because they're both European French devices, and so they didn't have gasoline in those days in the 1880s, and so they basically made alcohol from hemp. That's why it was made illegal. It wasn't because black men were smoking and going after white girls. It was Mr. Rockefeller, right? So that's, these things are right in front of us. It just takes, I keep telling you, go just Google this. And Google will, that's the one good thing about Google is that it does have this kind of, search engine, but it should be paying me for asking questions. So that is the question.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has unleashed his Terminator military tanks into battle in Ukraine as Kyiv continues to batter invading Russian tanks with British missiles. A video has emerged showing armored vehicles, which are designed to support infantry units fighting in urban areas in the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine. The deployment of the BMPT Terminator comes as Russia's invasion of Ukraine has taken a heavy toll on Putin's main army tanks. The T-90M tank has been no match to the Ukrainian troops as they continue to get obliterated by them with rockets. Ukraine confirmed this week that forces had destroyed Russian tanks deep behind enemy lines in the Donbas region using British-made Brimstone missiles. Russian President Vladimir Putin has unleashed his Terminator military tanks into battle. Russian President
Let's see. There I am live. Go to the library. This guy is good.
That there is a divine opening to express creativity. Thank you, beloved Most High, for granting the presence of mind and heart to know that as I focus and as we focus upon the grand expressions of creativity that exist within the whole world, that just by virtue of focusing upon that in the spirit of oneness, there is also an activation of great healing within the sacral chakra. By focusing upon the purity with which you have created sexuality
and going
and the
back to
divine
the beginning.
intentions associated with it. Day
I'll be right back.
85 in 100 days.
So you changed the advertisement. How often do you do that?
Sacredly presence.
How often do you change the advertisement?
Today, the transmission is on healing the sacral chakra, the second chakra, which is related to creativity, sexuality, emotions, healing in general. For the same energy of sexuality that can produce and make babies is also the same energy that can create. So this second chakra, the sacral chakra, has a very strong connection to healing in and of itself. So it's really a great fit for this 100 days of healing. The sacral chakra also has to do with intimacy and personal power, desire. So the second chakra, the sacral chakra, is a chakra that certainly is requiring a great deal of healing. Many people feel really creatively locked in that we don't have anything creatively to offer. And yet, because all of us are descendant of the Most High, every single one of us has something, anything to offer creatively. And so we want to send forth a healing vibration to open up the channels of creativity by the healing and the opening of the sacred chakra. We want to and intend to bring about a healing regarding sexual fitness tied to abuse, tied to miscarriages, abortions, and shame, and STDs, and everything that is an adverse energy that has an association with the sacral chakra. I'm going to first offer some tones for this healing and this balancing. And if it feels right, align with me in healing intention for the healing and the balance of the sacral chakra.
I mean, God's unconditional love resides in our heart because we wake up. Jesus' unconditional forgiveness is in our mind. We should just be aware of it. That nice little ditty. What would Jesus do? I must say that 100 times a day because, man, it straightens me out. When somebody says something or something happens, and instead of me going like this, I go, what would Jesus do? You know, people think, oh, that's hokey, stupid stuff. No, that's like, it's like the deal. So you listen to the guy harmonically resonating you into it.
Thank you, beloved Most High, for the healing of the sacral chakra, the opening and clearing of all blockages associated with sexuality and creative expression, that the channels of creative expression open for every being. Let it be that myself and every being is clearly aware of the gift of creative expression that is meant to pour through. That there is a divine opening to express creativity. Thank you, beloved Most High, for granting the presence of mind and heart.
In a way,
No.
you exactly
focus and as we
found my
focus
poem.
upon
I did that yesterday. I wrote it
grand
yesterday.
expressions of
and that's
creativity
exactly
that
where it
exist
was.
within the whole world,
Under the passenger
just
seat. Yep.
by virtue of
Very
focusing
good.
upon
Beautiful.
that in the
Receptive
spirit of
ability.
oneness, there is
And the car
also an
window was open,
activation
but luckily
of
it was the
healing
rear one. So when it rained
within
hard,
the
it really
sacral
didn't do it.
chakra.
It was on the driver's
By
side where all the
focusing
buttons
upon
are.
the purity with which you have
Very,
created
very good, Wade. You're
sexuality
doing good.
and the divine intentions associated with it that is totally beyond any misuse of that energy.
You listen to this guy?
And by virtue of focusing upon the purity with which you have created this, there is also an activation of great healing within the sacral chakra.
I got a guest here. Let's see if he answers the phone.
West Quarter County Public Library. How may I help you?
Hey there, is Joseph around?
May I ask who's calling?
Oh, this is his owl.
Okay, let me go see if he's available.
Okay. This is a guy, he is a historian. Not the guy talking here. He's a meditative master. Can you feel this guy's energy? So I really love librarians. You know, I've lived with a number of them, and they really have an interesting point of view. And they were the first computer nerds, right? So back in the day when I did have a handle on computers, I was from librarians. And in my Akashic record, you know, I have three kids there. One is my animal totem, my librarian, and my guardian angel. Guardian angel always got my back. My animal totem is always, let's say, turtle, but I do belong to the owl family, the owl clan. And my librarian always brings me the information I need. Can you feel this guy? I mean, he is pumping out energy into your sacrum right now, right? That's why I still got him on there, right? He's pumping it out. It's you. Oh, ooh. Well, it's good to see you. You haven't seen you in a long time. You know, my
Sharing with me.
technological skills are limited, and that's just an excuse on my point. My access to them are even more limited. Again, another excuse.
I am so honored and grateful to know that when I set forth the intention to heal, that intention is backed by God is absolutely the Most High.
Yep.
It's backed by the entire ascended host.
Yep.
It's backed by every elevated ancestor and angel. There is a
I don't know what happened to Joseph.
of the backing of this intention for the healing of the sacral chakra.
The sacrum
I am
chakra.
not alone. You are not alone.
You are not alone.
I know.
So, everyone, if you want to get a hold of me at the dudawake42 at Gmail, right? Google Alphabet is being obnoxious because we used to have kind of unlimited, everything up there in the cloud. Now they only give me 2 months, meaning my Gmail is, for 2 months, everything's there, but it just keeps on moving stuff, at the end of that 2 months up into the cloud. And I can't get at it unless I pay them money, right? So it'd be nice if you sent me something on the old PayPal, which it still works. Somebody sent me a few dollars last week, so it's still working, And so, anyway, that went away. I got 96% of the old battery on that one, so that's good. So my oldest phone that had all my phone numbers on and my Googles and my WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff, it kind of disappeared. And that's it. So I mean, I'm trying to get it fixed, get it revivified to just get the data. But it wouldn't, once it died, it was still kind of there. I just used it to do WhatsApp and this and that. The phone part didn't work. And so I just got another phone, that my carrier gave me another phone. And
Hi, this is Joe.
hey, Joe, this is Al, buddy.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good. We are live on the old YouTube, and I just wanted to touch base with you about what you as a librarian do. Yeah, and what I mean,
Well-
most people have no idea what a librarian is, right? And so, and you're more than a librarian. So tell them your gig.
Well, now, see, I'm the city archivist, but because, my speciality is archives, but I work in a small public library, we got to kind of wear all the different hats.
Right.
So sometimes I'm more acting as a librarian in terms of cataloging books and finding books for people and, putting things on hold for people and checking things in and out. But then when I'm really doing my speciality, I'm in the back room preserving historical documents, or I'm out in the county kind of combing through crawl spaces looking for ephemera or different, manuscript collections, photographs, journals, things like that.
And what's very interesting, most people think we're out in the middle of nowhere, but actually where you are, Elizabethton and Johnson City, and what's the other city starts with a G on the other side of Johnson City?
Greenville.
Yes. Those are like historical diamonds. So much stuff has happened here. It's mind-boggling, especially industry. Why don't you give the audience a little taste? I mean, most people think of industry as like Chicago and Detroit and maybe New York and the East Coast, but really around here was like in the 18 whatevers. This was pretty much the cutting edge.
Well, yeah, I mean, it started with, the early logging and mining industry, and, that created kind of an industrial labor force here that was, both agricultural and industrial, and that brought in a lot of the early 20th century businesses. So by the mid 20th century, you've got Magnavox in Greenville inventing some of the first transistors. You've got obviously Oak Ridge,
Right.
involved with the Manhattan Project,
Which was
far from here.
and that's a whole nother story because, Oak Ridge wasn't just that place in Oak Ridge. Its shadow went out, I would say, at least 400 miles in circumference. I mean, places like Asheville and Irwin and around here, plus the chemical companies, this was like they were doing magic. That's what that technology was.
And you had Great Lakes over here that built some of the nose cones for the first nuclear weapons. Obviously, North American, Rayon and Bonet were making cordage and parachutes for the World War II effort.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those chemical processes and all of those machines had to be built in-house, had to be designed in-house. It wasn't stuff you could just, order off the Sears Roebuck catalog.
Right.
So, there's a lot of mechanical engineering and a lot of innovation that was going on in terms of physics and chemistry. And then, of course, you still got, Eastman very active up in Kingsport,
Right.
So it was really a hotbed of 20th century innovation and scientific industry. And I think more so than just the things that happened here, it's the fact that a lot of it has not been written about.
Right.
There's lots of amazing history throughout the country, but most of it's been plumbed. It's been written books and articles about, but there's so much history here from the 20th century that nobody's written a book about, no one's published an article about. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the most prominent forms of scholarship in Appalachia tend to be folklore.
Right.
They tend to be kind of this old-timey way of looking at things. And so you really haven't had these really robust histories of chemistry and history of physics come out of here.
But that could still be told because the people who were working there were still mountain folk. They could still tell the old timey story about all of that technology, and which would probably be more interesting,
Yeah, I think the blending of the two, and a lot of people think that, it was just physical natural resources that brought a lot of the rayon plants and things here, but it was also the human labor force.
Right. And like you said, the ingenuity, the intuitive ingenuity of the people working online making these processes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm hoping that through my work I can preserve a lot of the documents and the raw data that will enable scholars and generations to come to write those full histories.
So do you think my 40 years of dealing with academia and then scholarship, academia is almost that is, it's taken over in a way, like academia is like the false form of knowing, you know? It's like an artificial, it's like a faux, it's like the pretty picture that covers what's ever behind it. Whereas scholarship is more the whole story.
Yeah, and I think especially in history and society and cultural studies like that, if you're a dissertation student, and you're working to get your doctorate,
Right.
What you really want is that unplumbed story, that story that no one's heard of yet,
Right.
Because so many things have been published and republished and,
Yeah.
redissected. So, my hope is to uncover the documents for stories that really haven't been told yet, and that will entice some of these scholars looking for something that's totally new to come in and do some more thorough research on it.
So do you think because the way funding is in academia, it stops, it keeps people from really plumbing deep and having an understanding rather than just a rehashing of what has been acceptable?
Well, yeah, what I think the rise of postmodern philosophy and the way that that's kind of worked its way into every single department, there's just this strong desire to go back and rewrite, histories that were written, say, in the 40s and 50s and bring in the perspective of women and minorities and, a lot of the more postmodern perspective and see if you can get a totally different story out of it. So I think there is, this big desire to, deconstruct everything into the social construction of everything. But I think like everything else in academia, it's a pendulum swing. It'll go very philosophical for a while, and everything will be cultural critique and things like that. But then eventually, academics will get bored with reading that stuff, and that won't really entice the publishers anymore because it's been done so many times, and there'll be something new.
Right.
And sometimes that new thing might be a return to the old.
Right.
A very kind of classic way of looking at history
Right.
will all of a sudden become unique again.
Now, we were talking about the history of this area, especially technologically, and that we were both saying that this is prime to be not turned into, tourist land, but into the next Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I think, every community around here has been spending the last 30, 40 years really trying to define themselves in the 21st century. After the industrial flight and the loss of a lot of the major employers, those were such identifying things for these communities. The rayon plant really was Elizabethan for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got, these communities that are struggling to say, okay, how do we define ourselves now that this industry is gone? And we don't want to define ourselves by what's come in its place because it's mostly fast food and service industry, so you don't want to be known as the place full of call centers and Mickey D's. So they want to define themselves. So I think here in Carter County, there's a big push to define ourselves in terms of our natural resources. We're this mountain community where you can come and do kayaking and hit the lakes and go on hikes, and we've got the Appalachian Trail here. However, that kind of discounts a lot of the history, so I think there's some people that would define us more through Sycamore Shoals and Roan Mountain Park and more about, our cultural resources than our physical resources. And so you end up with a lot of people kind of cutting up the pie in different places rather than kind of having a hewn together, kind of view of how we want to present ourselves to the rest of the country. So unfortunately, I think, it's going to take a generational shift in how they view economic development, because right now you've still got some people that have this kind of 70s, 80s, 90s model of economic development that if we could just kind of, get all the homeless people out of town and get rid of all the riffraff, that, some big businessman's going to come in and put his flag in the ground and this is going to be the next big, Subaru plant or the next big whatever, and everyone's going to get back to work again.
And that's not going to happen.
I think, no, I think anybody with any knowledge of contemporary economics and the lay of the land knows it's not going to happen. So then the question is, if you don't have that model, what model comes in its place?
You know what I see? Besides that little thing we're talking about to try and figure out how to make this place the next Silicon Valley, and not so much having a plant turning out chips, but having people making the next big app, is that I've been looking at the kids, ones in the public schools and the ones in like ETSU. ETSU is an amazing facility. So I was at a little, almost a red schoolhouse over in my neck of the woods. And why they haven't been mixed into the other schools is that they're just that far away. And there is a school there, and it is working. And my comparison of that little school to all the other, like the high school there where you are, and the middle school where you are, and the other two grammar schools, is that they're big. They have at least hundreds of students. This has like less than 160. And it is a gem because every teacher knows every kid there. Every teacher has a relationship with every kid there. And these kids can roam around. The teachers give the students from kindergarten to 8th grade the responsibility to be responsible. It's the only school I see in the whole school system that they do that. And so they're extraordinarily well behaved, right? And they really do listen to their teachers because they like their teachers, and their teachers are trying to reach out to them because these kids are from the holler neck of the woods where their parents are on meth, and everyone thinks that all the bad things come in the inner cities. No, this neck of the woods has per capita more crime, more death, more all of that than the inner cities do. And but here are these kids who are in the cesspool of all of that, and they're doing amazing. And the school system there is tinkering with it and thinking maybe we'll spend a little money on gas and bust them into town, which would destroy these kids. And the school system doesn't realize that this is a gem that they could use to demographically research it. And ETSU, they said some kids from ETSU, and they did a big study of these kids, and I was there watching them do the study. And the whatever department that these kids came from, the head office said, "Hey, we're sending these kids over. They're going to just practice at doing this." And no, they were absorbing data just like Google does. And whoever was, paying for this thing, they're going to make a lot of money out of what they got out of those kids, right? And so when those guys from ETSU were sitting around waiting for the kids to come into the gym, I read all their palms, right? And they were like, "Oh wow, woo." And then I got to the last person, and the last person was the invisible person. She didn't want me to read the thing, and they had on the desk the thing that the survey they were going to give the kids, and I picked it up. And she just ripped it out of my hand. "You can't read that." I said, "I can't read that? How come? What's secret about this? What are you doing with it?" And I just went straight into, what are you doing with this information? How are you taking advantage of these kids? And she went and to the head guy and said, "Well, who is this guy?" And the head guy says, "He's my boy." Answer his questions, because he's a smart guy. He knows how to be the sweet, nice, everyone loves him. But he has me there because I'm doing the stuff that he wants me to do without him telling me to do it or even getting paid. He goes, "Don't worry, we're gonna find a place for you," and because he knows I live on like $400 a month. I mean, he can't believe I do what I do, and so and he knows, like the other day, the guys, I live in this place. You better come and visit me before it stops being the nature preserve it is, because the bulldozer showed up, and
Oh
so,
no!
yeah, not on my square, but in my neighborhood. And I went over there and basically I first stopped them and had them explain to me who and what and where it was coming from and da-da-da. And these guys said, and this guy owned a business because I really don't know. I got this email and then I got a check in my bank account. I got a deposit and, I'm just going to do this. Do you want me to stop? I said, no, you can keep going, because what he was doing actually was going to be okay for me, right? So as long as they do these things that are okay for me, but what they really, in the long run, they'll be building the Dollar General across the street from me, And and people don't realize that the value of what this energy is of this property, and to tear it apart just so they can build $1 million houses on top of a mountain, right? Which will get blown off anyway. And this is only one of 12 that the rich guys have, and they're just doing it so they don't have to pay taxes on it, right? It's like just, the town fathers of all these counties and towns around here are totally bought off, just like every other politician, and have no vision, and they don't care about their people. So and these little kids in this school are a good example, because they are an amazing resource. They are so resilient. I'm hanging out there because I'm studying them to understand their resilience. They should be dead. They should be on OxyContin in kindergarten, but they're not. So.
I mean, my brother, I have a couple family members because of my brother that work in education, and they're all up in Rhode Island, and I think it's very difficult for them to wrap their heads around the importance of regional education.
Yes.
They're so hung up on national standards,
right.
Core curriculums,
yep.
and that all of these high school seniors need to be graduating with some form of the same level of education, so that it makes the job for colleges easier and all this crap. And like you said, so much of it comes down to, if you know the life situation of your students and you know where they're coming from, you can tailor the educational programs to take advantage of their strengths and to make up for some of the weaknesses.
Yep.
And I think one of the saddest parts about, kind of this nationalification of education that should be regional is that, we've got a mismatch between the skills we're promoting in the high schools and the skills that they need to actually stay here in Carter County and work and be successful. So that, a lot of these technology skills, I think, are vital when you look at the world in general. But right now, in terms of here in Carter County, there's not a whole lot of tech jobs.
No.
So rather than say, okay, it's important to know how to design apps and stuff, but also head over to TCAT and learn to weld.
Right.
Because Snap-on's always going to need welders.
Yep.
And so, so I think that pairing the education and the skills with what's already here, and also having that vision for what could be here in the future, and making sure that you're giving them that leg up. But unfortunately, I think you've got a lot of young people that are learning a lot of technology skills that, to put them to use, they're going to have to use. And that
right.
goes back to that brain drain that we talked about when
yep.
our best and brightest,
yep.
We take advantage of the education system, get a good education, and then they leave and never come back because there's nothing for them.
Because, so within the scholastic world, I would work for people who would, like No Child Left Behind. I worked on a program before that called the STAR program. And my whole thing was working on strategies. And one of the things I realized that when we were talking about teaching kids to what their needs are and leaning on their strengths and helping them with the weaknesses, the major thing that I saw was that you want a kid to learn math, you don't give him a textbook. You basically have to, because the only way the human brain works is to visualize things, right? We are optically nerve-centered folk. And when you read something in a textbook, all that is putting it in, dumping it into a part of your brain, which is like the spam of your brain. And that's why teaching math that way. So, I was developing this math protocol. The first thing we taught them was basically numbers, what a number is, right? But we didn't go any further than that, right? How to count, right? And then we taught them geometry because they could visualize it. And then we taught them a number theory and then algebra and trigonometry through geometry, because that's where the Greeks did it, And it was truly amazing because we were teaching kids in 5th grade algebra and trigonometry, and they were getting it because they could see it. Whereas the kids in that same school district that we're working in, who were in high school, they couldn't figure out algebra and trigonometry. It was like a dog trying to understand English. Hey, man. And and these things, we did it scientifically. We measured everything. We showed how it worked. And then we brought it to the politicians and said, okay, this works. And the other thing we did was we went to the worst town in the state, the worst neighborhood, the worst school, the worst class, to the worst kid. It just took the worst kid out and gave that kid what that kid needed, and not special ed, but real attention. And then the teacher could teach everybody else. So they all went on to the next grade and learned, and then they graduated high school, and within 8 years the crime rate went down, and people had more jobs and more money. And it almost seems, so when we brought this to the federal government and showed how it really worked, they said, well, that's nice, but we're going to do this thing called No Child Left Behind and test all the kids. And, my boss just had me in that thing because he knew I would go nuts. He couldn't go nuts, but he knew I would. And I just went up and down and just, and that was like, 20 years ago. And so that's where we're at now. I mean, it's almost like they had a choice. We gave them a thing that would really work because it was basically went all the way down to the individual student, and they didn't want that. They basically wanted to curtail, they wanted to incarcerate all of these kids in this useless education system. And the beauty of this little school.
For all the innovation that I hear people talk about in education, it really does come down to, in my mind, the experience of the students, and when I talk to recent graduates, once they get out in the world, and I ask them and I say things like, do you feel like your education prepared you, almost to a person? The answer is no.
No.
So to me, that's, you can have a bunch of happy bureaucrats in Washington, and that doesn't mean that, the people that are actually getting the education are happy with it.
And the Greek root of education is to not get a diploma, but to learn through experience. That's the Greek root of education, the word education. So it's like we have that horse has left the barn.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's why I like, serving more of an ancillary role where I can go into the middle schools, the high schools, the elementary schools, and do it, a one-day-long presentation about, local history, archives. I can touch upon some more controversial subject matter that maybe, the teachers that have such a strict curriculum and have to teach to these tests really can't get off and talk about current events or something a little more controversial for fear of, alienating or offending a student.
Right, and getting fired.
Yeah, I can come in and kind of, stir things up a little bit, and then, I'm gone. And if they want to continue the conversation, they can come to my domain in the library here. And, I find that most of the students that actually make the trek to the library and actually sit in the archives, it's the atmosphere. They're not used to being in an atmosphere like that, where you've been in the archives room where you've got the historic photos hanging, and you've got that smell of old paper and old microfilm, and, they can sense that there's a reverence for history in that room, and that, they're not just going to come in there and start talking about, their crazy theories about, different things.
Right.
And, a lot of them want to come in there and, especially when I'm doing genealogy, I get a lot of, well, my grandpa said this and my great grandpa said that, and it's like, well, yeah, that's great. It's good to have family lore, but that doesn't mean it's the God's honest truth.
Right.
And when we start looking into the documents and see that, I remember one guy came in and he was saying, well, I was always told my great uncle was the chief of police, and so we started looking through the old city directories and found out that he was the chief cook at one of the restaurants downtown. So chief was definitely in his name, but not of police.
Exactly.
Well, hey, Bob, I got to get back to the job here, get a little busier here.
So my little question, next week I'm coming in your neck of the woods. What's a good time to come visit?
Let's see.
After
Anytime
lunch?
in the afternoons, I'm here.
Okay, so that's I will shoot for like maybe 1:30 to 2.
That sounds great.
Sound like a plan? And
Look forward to seeing you.
Probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere around there.
That sounds fantastic.
Okay, handsome. Thanks for talking.
Take it easy.
Yep. So those are people I know, right? So. Wade, it's hard to lose a house when you don't have one. Just have a tent. Uh, you know, what's weighing on my mind is, you know, what's up with you, Wade? You know, what is twitching you out? You know, you know, basically, if you've been watching Dreamy Dreamland, I'm pretty much the same guy all the time. You know, I give a little, you know, whatever I notice fly by on my stream. Look at that. And I speak to it, or I play some of it, like the guy doing meditation. Clearing out your sacrum. I mean, Wade, I really do think you need some cleaning out of your sacrum there. You know, it would do you good. You know, that little concentration of your breath. Oh, come on, Wade. Say it after me. Oh. Right? So, I love you, Wade. I love you all there out there in YouTube land. I think I've said enough. I played different things that give you insights for you to think, because the big thing is you are the decider of your own life. You know, don't let any institution or group of people or anybody muscle you, and especially don't muscle yourself, right? Keep an open mind, you know, have a freely inquiring mind, you know. And now most of you don't. You're stuck in your fear, you're stuck in your habits, you're stuck in whatever you believe. And the best thing is if you can enumerate the things you're stuck in. So, Wade, I'd love it if you could enumerate the things you're stuck in. You know, what are those things that you what is your self-loathe? You know, I tell you, you know, back in the day when I worked in the corporate world and I weighed 460 pounds, it was pretty physical. My self-loathing is, you know, the physical. You know, I stumbled into a really successful life. That was, you know, basically I was working for corporate lawyers, you know, and my whole life I've been studying that stuff and seeing what it was and working to free people from it. And there I was working at it. And, you know, I kind of got addicted to that lifestyle. So, you know, and I had spent a good 40 years trying to do, you know, house the homeless, stop nuclear war, stop pollution, all of the above. And no matter, you know, I had great success on whatever I was doing, but it never made a difference, or seeming, right? At least to my bourgeois judgment. And so, you know, when I stumbled into this, and it gave me, you know, I had to work maybe 11 weeks a year, and I could do whatever the heck I wanted, and I could go anywhere, and I never had to worry about money or anything, right? Nothing physical. So I lost the attention to my physicality and gained 200 pounds, right? And then I died in a plate of spaghetti. You know, it's not easy. And in actuality, it is easy. You know, I wake up every morning in screaming pain because, you know, all the things that, you know, 15 years of physical abuse, of overeating and over drinking and just the super, I mean, most unbelievable highlight. Did you guys ever see the Monty Python movie? Wade, did you ever see the Monty Python movie, The Thing of Life, or the, you know, it was about the, you know, the 9 sins of existence, you know, greed, stupidity, avarice, lust, all those things, right? And what's it called? Something of life, meaning to life, maybe. It was a Monty Python thing, and it had this one thing about, you know, overeating, right? And had this guy named Mr. Creosote, and he was the super duperest, unbelievable. I mean, you know, he would have, you know, a turkey with a duck in it, with a pheasant in it, with a dove in it, all with unbelievable stuffings, and he'd eat like 12 of them, right? And you know, that was me. You know, I had that kind of, was surrounded by that kind of luxury and money, and I didn't even have to work. Meaning, 20, 30 years before, I was mostly working as an electrician. Doing interesting stuff, but still, that's why I'm still alive because, up until I was 40, how old when I started that? 45, maybe? Somewhere between 45 and 48, I stumbled into that and into the corporate world and did that until I was 60. I wasn't 65 then. Maybe 63 is when I died. 74, maybe 64. So 2014, that's when I died, and that woke me up. So now it's really interesting. When you have nothing, you can be really grateful, really appreciative of what you do have, right? And when you have nothing, you don't have to worry about losing anything. I mean, I had lots of real estate, lots of investments, lots of, I was doing the Warren Buffett thing: buy, borrow, die. All the trillionaires, so they don't pay any taxes or anything. They buy stuff, they borrow on the stuff they buy more stuff, and they borrow more and more, and that's how they play the game, right? That is the hollowing out of our planet is buy, borrow, die, right? And so, I mean, that's how Mr. Elon Musk and Jeffy Bezos, and all these guys buy, borrow, and plus they're coming from an elite crew, right? And they were bred to be the poster children of what they're doing, right? And guys like the Rockefeller cousins and the Kennedys and Billy Small Penis, it's you can see it right there. So I stumbled into it. I had a skill set that they used, and then I died. And then 7 years I got, and I'm not, all my organs and all the things that I totally, stressed out, they didn't become like 27-year-old kidney again, And so what keeps me alive is every morning I wake up and when I go to sleep, I meditate and I'm gone. I'm asleep. And I sleep a good 8 to 12 hours. And when I wake, and I only wake up because what happens is when you go to sleep, your autonomic system unplugs. So all the things that I would set up to have a homeostasis, a balance in my body, would go every which way. And so when I wake up, every muscle, everything is screaming. I have to, it takes me either 10 minutes to an hour to meditate to get homeostasis humming. Then I get myself out of bed. Otherwise, I just turn over and go back to sleep. But I get myself out of bed and I walk up my hill. By the time I get up there, and then I walk up this other hill, and I get a big glass of unbelievably pure spring water and drink that. And then I go hit my beautiful toilet and eliminate everything. And then I'm good to go, right? And then, I meditate, I go up to my healing temple and I meditate there for 15, 20 minutes in a more spiritual sense. And then I have my little fix this, do that, do my laundry, go see this person, do that, right? And that's what I'm doing. And I'm energizing myself back into the game, right? And so, it took me, from 2014 to now, almost 10 years to get back. And here it is, 2022. So it's 8 years. But, in the next year and a half, I will be, again, I don't worry about it. I go in the flow and whatever the universe has me want. Right now, the universe wants me to talk to you, Wayne. Let's see. You don't see 75, which was great because, when I was 64 and died, I played spaghetti and I went, to my life review, which I had already seen twice. They were all there with hats and balloons and cake and, hey, welcome home. And my teacher, always pat me on the back. Asha K. He said, you're doing great, kid. You're doing great. But you got to go back. I said, what? I'm ready. I'm tired. I'm through. I'm toast. He goes, well, you can do that. That's fine. But You have been amazing. You have accomplished 89% of what you came here to do. You have 11% more. Now, if you go back and complete that 11%, you will have, you can then ascend. Meaning, I'm not going to heaven, but I can go up a little bit next time around on the karmic wheel. Won't have to go do something to make up for something. So I've done my best, and that's all you're really asked to do. And Wade, I see you don't really try too hard to do your best because you are set in a morass, right? And you have great talent. If all you have to do, Wade, is your best. Pick that thing you love to do and do your best. For almost 50 years, the thing I love to do is being an electrician. I did a ton of other stuff because my electrical work was just, the base that I worked from. I mean, it always gave me an economic security. It always gave me something. Every time I went to work, I did not go, I don't want to go to work today. I looked forward to everything I did, Every night when I went to sleep, I meditated on what I had to do the next day. I visualized everything. I visualized waking up in the morning. I practiced making all my list, go, drive to the job. You have a little bag for that? And a lid for this? Yeah, you can put a little more, warm it up. And so every day of my life, I enjoyed, even when I was really sick. I mean, really sick. Really sick. And really in pain and really suffering, like for 7 years, right? And I worked my way. I lost 220 pounds, like 500 pounds and then lose 200, and learn from that experience, right? So everything you said, Wade, yeah, I know who you are. You were one of the first trolls, and I never got rid of you because, I view. Thank you, dear. I view everyone as part of that, and everyone's here for a positive reason. You can still find love, buddy. If you don't have love in your heart, God's unconditional love in your heart, you're not going to find it on Grindr. I'm sure of that. And love isn't, coming from your hormonal side. Love is a spiritual experience. And again, I'm not sure if the, God's unconditional love is on Grindr. And Jesus, and you need Jesus's unconditional forgiveness in your mind. So when all of the terrible things that you think people are picking on you and everyone's against you and it's just you again, no. God's in your heart, unconditionally loves you, no matter what no matter how sick and vile you think you are, you're not, because God loves you. And all you have to do, that nice little ditty, what would Jesus do, is actually, I say it 100 times because I'm a moron. I make mistakes all the time. And, you could just, this, if I do anything, I think if I could get you to understand God's unconditional love for you in your heart and live Jesus's unconditional forgiveness in your consciousness, and say in your mind every time a problem comes, so what would Jesus do? If you did that, you wouldn't need Grindr. You wouldn't need to be a troll. You wouldn't need to do any of this, right? Because you would be a happy chappy, Or if you're a girl, you'd be a happy girl, I don't know what gender you are. Right? You could be almost anything. You could be a fish or a parasite for all I know. And that's, God still loves you, So, and I'm not dissing fish, I'm just saying you could be anything, and you could have a real life, and you could, not be a sore loser, right? Ah. Oh, I love coffee. Yeah. But some people can't drink coffee. Some people it's like crack cocaine. And you know, I have 3 or 4 cups a day. That's about it. So what else can I say? You know why I told you? Because you love me, Wade. That's why. Because I love you. And Jesus loves you and God loves you, right? And one day you'll wake up to this love and you'll realize you don't have to go on Grindr. So, how much juice do I have left in here? Yeah, I'm going to go now. Yep. Well, it's been fun. I look forward to seeing, again, you know, come on, buddies, send something up to my PayPal. Get a hold of me at the dudewake42 at Gmail, dudewake42 at Gmail. And I'll talk to you guys later. See you later, guys. Love you.